Sunday mornings are usually my quiet escape. The hum of the coffee maker, sunlight sneaking through the blinds, the kind of stillness that makes you feel safe. I was cleaning our shared office, just tidying things up, when a piece of paper slipped out from between two books. An envelope, cream-colored, delicate, sealed with a tiny red heart. My name wasn't on it. For a second, I almost put it back. But something, instinct, maybe, told me not to. I picked it up, feeling that strange mix of guilt and curiosity twisting inside me. The seal peeled open too easily, like it wanted to be discovered. Inside, I found neat, looping handwriting, too romantic, too careful to be casual. My eyes caught a few words. Never thought someone married could make me feel this alive again. My stomach dropped, the kind of drop that makes your knees weak before your heart even understands why. I kept reading. You said you'd tell her soon, but please don't keep me waiting forever. Signed, yours, A. My pulse roared in my ears. Tell her soon? Married? I didn't need a translation. My chest felt tight, like the air itself was turning on me. The room looked the same, but nothing in it belonged to me anymore. I sat there for a long time, holding that letter like it might burn me. The words felt alive, pulsing, whispering things I didn't want to hear. My mind tried to make excuses for him. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, a cruel joke, something, anything, that didn't end with me being the fool. But deep down, I knew. You can feel truth in your bones before your brain admits it. And that truth hurt like hell. When Ethan came home that evening, I was waiting, calm on the outside, chaos on the inside. I had the letter folded neatly on the desk, like evidence waiting for its trial. He smiled when he saw me, that practiced, easy smile I used to love. I didn't smile back. I just asked, "Who's A?" His face froze for a heartbeat before he blinked too quickly, too many times. "What do you mean?" he asked, but his voice cracked, barely. I handed him the letter and watched his eyes dart across the page. He forced a laugh, that fake kind of laugh that smells like fear. "Oh, that's nothing," he said. "A prank from work." A handwritten love letter? From work? My silence must have told him I wasn't buying it because he snapped, "I don't have to explain myself every time you get paranoid." His tone cut through me sharper than the letter ever could. Paranoid. That word hung in the air like smoke, choking everything between us. I just stood there, quiet, watching the man I thought I knew morph into a stranger trying to defend the indefensible. The funny thing is, I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too busy memorizing the way his hands fidgeted, how his eyes wouldn't stay still. Guilt has a body language, and his was screaming. He stormed off after that, muttering something about trust and space, slamming the door like punctuation. I sat down again, the letter lying on the desk beside me, so ordinary and cruel all at once. The handwriting looked almost beautiful, the kind of loops and curves that take time, attention, love. She'd taken her time. He'd given her his. And me? I was left holding the proof of both. That night, sleep never came. I lay there, listening to his steady breathing beside me, wondering how long he'd been lying with her instead. Every detail from our life suddenly felt staged, every compliment rehearsed, every kiss mechanical. But I didn't confront him again. Not yet, because something inside me shifted that night. Something quiet, deliberate, dangerous. I wasn't just broken. I was awake. The next morning, he kissed my forehead before leaving for work, just like always. Same gentle touch, same, "see you tonight." But now it felt like a performance I'd already seen too many times. The moment the door shut, I exhaled, slow, deliberate, and something inside me decided to stop pretending. I wasn't going to scream or beg for honesty. I was going to find the truth myself, one piece at a time. I started with the letter. The paper wasn't plain. It had a faint watermark near the corner. The Bay Hotel. A name that hit me like a whisper with claws. I'd never been there, but I knew it was close to his office. I held it to my nose. There was perfume, soft and floral, nothing I'd ever worn. The scent clung to my fingers long after I set it down. That's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was a story written without me. I spent the next few hours going through his drawers, the trash bin, the desk, looking for patterns, something that would connect the dots. I found hotel receipts, folded notes, a pen with the same gold emblem from the stationery. Each discovery made my stomach twist tighter, but also steadier. I wasn't losing control. I was collecting evidence, not to cry over, but to burn him with later. By the third day, I'd become an expert in his patterns. What time he left, how long he stayed at work, when his phone went silent. The lies had a rhythm, and I was learning to dance to it. I stopped asking questions, stopped looking disappointed. Instead, I smiled more, played the part of the trusting wife he thought I still was. That's the thing about betrayal. Once it cracks you open, you start seeing through everything. That night, I sat at my desk, phone in hand, my heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. I called the Bay Hotel, masking my voice in the calmest tone I could find. "Hi, this is Rachel from Griffin & Co.," I said, pretending to be from his company's HR department. "I'm confirming if Mr. Ethan Miller stayed at your property recently for business." The pause on the other end was brief. Too brief. "Yes, ma'am. He checked in last month. 3 nights," the receptionist said, almost casually. My throat tightened. 3 nights. He'd told me it was a conference trip, hours of meetings, no time for calls. I thanked her politely, hung up, and stared at my reflection in the dark computer screen. My face didn't look shocked, just hollow. I wasn't the woman discovering betrayal anymore. I was the woman planning what came after. After that call, something inside me went quiet. Not numb, sharper. Like my emotions had turned into a blade I finally knew how to use. I spent the next few days gathering proof, each clue folding neatly into the story I already knew was true. Handwriting samples, timestamps, perfume traces, they became my armor. Every detail was a small victory, and with each one, the woman I'd been, trusting, patient, naive, faded a little more. Ethan didn't notice the change. He came home, kissed me goodnight, scrolled on his phone while I pretended to read beside him. But I was watching him differently now, cataloging everything. The nervous taps of his fingers, the half smiles that didn't reach his eyes. He thought I was distant because I was tired. He was right, just not in the way he imagined. I was tired of loving a liar. The night I decided to end this game, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself for a long time. I didn't see heartbreak anymore. I saw strategy. He'd written his confession in someone else's handwriting, but mine would be written in action. I wasn't going to confront him again. I was going to set the stage, light the match, and let him watch his own life burn. I started playing my part like I'd rehearsed it all my life. Smiles returned, soft and effortless. I laughed at his stories, asked about his day, even cooked his favorite meals. It wasn't forgiveness. It was theater. The more normal I acted, the more confident he became. He looked relaxed again, comfortable, like the storm had passed. That was exactly what I wanted. You can't catch a man who's already on guard. You let him walk into the trap himself. One night, while we were watching TV, I leaned against him and whispered, "We should plan something romantic soon, just you and me." He smiled, oblivious, like a man who still believed in his own innocence. "You read my mind," he said, kissing my hair. My heart didn't flutter like it used to. It just ticked. Steady. Focused. I was already 3 steps ahead. The next morning, I booked a reservation at the Bay Hotel's restaurant, the same place the letter had been written. The irony tasted sweet. Then I called Mara, an old friend from college who'd become a private investigator. If Ethan was writing love stories with someone named Alyssa, I wanted every chapter. "Give me names, dates, photos," I told her. "I'm not guessing anymore." Mara didn't disappoint. Within 2 days, she called with the calm precision of someone who'd seen too many men like Ethan. "Her name's Alyssa," she said. "Co-worker, marketing department. They've been seen together outside the office. Lunches, late nights, same car, same hotel." My stomach didn't drop this time. I just nodded, even though she couldn't see me. It wasn't news, it was confirmation. The story was finally complete, and I was ready to write the ending myself. At dinner that night, I watched Ethan across the table, his face warm under the soft kitchen light, the way he joked, the way he reached for my hand. If I hadn't known, I might have believed we were still happy. But the space between us wasn't love anymore. It was silence dressed as comfort. I smiled anyway and told him I'd planned something special for Friday. His eyes lit up, ego sparkling like champagne bubbles. "A surprise?" he asked. "You'll see," I said. After he went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, fingers tracing the rim of my wine glass. The idea of revenge used to scare me. Now it felt like balance. Not rage, not chaos. Just justice in the quietest form. I didn't want to scream or break things. I wanted him to look me in the eye and finally see what he'd destroyed. And I wanted her there to witness it too. The next few days felt almost peaceful. Almost. I went through the motions like an actress who knew opening night was near. Ethan left for work, kissed me goodbye, and I smiled as if nothing had changed. But every moment had purpose now. Every look, every word, every touch was part of my script. He thought I was falling back in love. In truth, I was rehearsing his downfall. By Thursday, I'd perfected the plan. The reservation was confirmed. Corner table, candlelight, live piano. Romantic enough to look like devotion, public enough to make him sweat. I even bought a new dress, red, the same shade as the heart sticker that sealed that cursed letter. I wanted him to notice it, to remember it, to feel it burning through the guilt he'd buried. Mara would be nearby just in case. Not to help me, to witness the final act. Friday morning, I looked at him as he left, his tie slightly crooked, his voice casual as ever. He kissed my cheek and said, "Can't wait for tonight." I smiled, and it almost felt genuine. Almost. Because deep down, I knew something he didn't. By midnight, the woman he thought he owned, the quiet, forgiving wife, would no longer exist, and neither would the life he built on lies. Friday evening came dressed in perfume and pretense. I took my time getting ready. Red dress, gold earrings, a hint of lipstick that matched the wine I planned to order. My reflection stared back at me, unrecognizable yet familiar, like meeting an older, wiser version of myself who had stopped asking for kindness. When Ethan saw me, he smiled, surprised. "Wow," he said. "You look incredible." I thanked him softly, tucking the letter into my purse like a weapon wrapped in silk. The drive to the hotel felt surreal. He played music, hummed along, occasionally reaching for my hand. I let him. I even laughed when he cracked a joke about traffic, my voice smooth and steady. The Bay Hotel's lights glowed in the distance, warm, golden, inviting. As we pulled into the parking lot, his humming stopped. "Wait," he said, squinting at the sign. "Here?" His voice carried that edge of panic I'd been waiting for. "You said you'd never been here, right?" I asked, keeping my tone light. His face paled, just for a second. Yeah," he stammered. "Never." I smiled, slow and deliberate. Then it'll be a first for both of us. He didn't speak after that. The silence in the car was thick, heavy with the kind of awareness that can't be undone. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know how bad. We were seated near the window, the kind of spot couples usually request for anniversaries and proposals. The waiter lit a candle, poured water, smiled politely. Ethan looked tense but tried to hide it behind small talk about work and a client presentation I pretended to care about. I nodded, smiled, played the doting wife for the last time. "Would you like to order the wine?" I asked, scanning the list. "Maybe? The same one you had last time?" His fork clinked against his plate. "Last time?" he repeated. "I've never been here before." His voice sounded calm, but his eyes betrayed him, darting, restless. "Oh, I must have mixed it up," I said, meeting the waiter's gaze. "The guest favorite, please." When the glass was placed before him, he hesitated. I almost laughed. How quickly guilt poisons even the simplest pleasures. And then, fate, timing, karma, call it what you will. Alyssa walked in. Same hotel, same night, same tragic lack of awareness. She froze the moment she saw us. Her eyes widened, her face draining of color, like a ghost realizing she'd walked into her own haunting. Ethan's lips parted, no words forming. I smiled and gestured toward her. "Oh, look," I said lightly. "Someone you might recognize." Alyssa tried to retreat, her heels scraping softly against the marble floor, but I wasn't about to let her vanish back into the shadows. "Please," I said to the waiter, my voice warm, polite, almost sweet. "Bring her a chair. This seems like her kind of place." The poor man hesitated, glancing between us, unsure whether to intervene or run. Ethan sat frozen, his knuckles white around the stem of his glass. I had never seen him look smaller. When Alyssa finally sat, she wouldn't meet my eyes. Her trembling hands fiddled with her purse, her breathing shallow. I reached into mine and pulled out the letter. Still folded, still perfect. I laid it gently on the table, right between their plates. "You didn't tell me your work trips came with love letters," I said, softly enough that only they could hear. Ethan's face burned crimson. "Rachel, please," he started. "No," I cut in. "You please me, Ethan. You told her you'd tell me soon." "Well, surprise." The room had gone silent. Even the piano had stopped. I stood, straightened my coat, and looked at both of them. The man who promised me forever and the woman who believed him. "Here's your confession," I said, tapping the letter. Her words, "Your lie. Keep it. You'll need it for the divorce hearing." And then I walked away, not rushing, not crying, not breaking. Just done. With every step, I felt lighter. Like the air finally belonged to me again. The silence after that night was deafening, the kind that rings louder than shouting ever could. Ethan called, texted, begged. I didn't answer. Every "I'm sorry" looked smaller on the screen, every voicemail emptier than the last. I imagined him sitting there, rehearsing apologies that meant nothing. You can't apologize for breaking something you never valued. So I let the messages pile up like clutter, the kind you stop noticing after a while. Days turned into a strange rhythm. Work, sleep, coffee, quiet. I felt detached, like my body was still catching up with my decision. Sometimes I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, out of habit more than hope. But then I'd remember the look on his face when I left the restaurant. That helpless, pitiful confusion of a man realizing he'd lost control. That image was enough to steady me again. When we finally met, it wasn't at home or in a cafe. It was at the lawyer's office, neutral ground, sterile and cold. He looked nothing like the man who used to fill our house with noise. His eyes were tired, shoulders slumped, voice small. "You didn't have to humiliate me like that," he said. I almost laughed. You didn't have to humiliate our marriage, I replied. But here we are. The truth didn't need volume. It needed finality. He leaned forward, searching my face for softness, for the version of me that used to forgive too easily. But that woman was gone. It was a mistake, he said, his voice cracking on the word. I shook my head slowly. No, Ethan. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice, over and over again. He looked down, defeated, his hands gripping the edge of the table like he might fall without it. There was no satisfaction in watching him crumble. Just quiet understanding that this was the only way it could end. I slid the signed papers across the desk, my hand steady, my heart strangely light. I hope she was worth it, I said softly. He didn't answer. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he finally realized that some losses don't come with closure. They come with silence that echoes for years. When I left the office, the air outside felt different, crisp, cleaner somehow. I took a deep breath and let it sting my lungs, a reminder that pain could also mean freedom. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a victim or a wife. I felt like myself, someone who had walked through fire and learned how to breathe in the smoke. And I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The following weeks passed in fragments, mornings that smelled of fresh coffee instead of stale regret, nights that ended in peace rather than silence. I stopped checking my phone. The absence of his messages felt like oxygen. I filled the spaces he left behind with music, with friends, with laughter that didn't need permission. Every small joy was a rebellion against who I used to be. The woman who waited, doubted, forgave. Sometimes when I passed by our old home, I'd catch my reflection in the window. Not the tearful, desperate reflection I remembered, but someone stronger. Someone unrecognizable in the best way. Pain had stripped away everything unnecessary, leaving only truth. And I finally understood. You don't get closure from the person who broke you. You give it to yourself, one steady breath at a time. One evening, I sat alone on my porch, watching the sky turn that familiar shade of crimson. It reminded me of the dress I wore the night everything ended. Bold, unforgiving, alive. I smiled to myself, realizing that revenge was never about hurting him. It was about reclaiming me. And though I hadn't planned it, I was already writing the next chapter of my life. Months later, my life feels unfamiliar, in the best possible way. The mornings are slower now. I make my coffee exactly how I like it, not how he preferred it. The silence in the house doesn't ache anymore. It hums, soft and peaceful. I've started traveling again. Short trips at first, just to remember what freedom tastes like. Somewhere between airports and ocean views, I realized I wasn't running from my past. I was walking toward myself. One morning, while cleaning my kitchen, I found a blank card tucked between old receipts. It stopped me. The texture of it, the emptiness, the possibility. I sat down, pen in hand, and started to write. Never thought I'd feel alive again, I wrote, the words flowing easier than I expected. But I did, the moment I stopped loving a liar. My handwriting looked steady, sure of itself, like it had been waiting for this moment too. I pinned the note to my bulletin board, right above my desk, the same place where I'd once found his secret. This one was mine, my ending, my beginning. I looked at it for a long time, smiling. You can't rewrite the past, I whispered, but you can author the ending. For the first time in a long time, I believed it. Because he might have left me a letter of betrayal, but I wrote my own letter of freedom,